Welcome back to the Collegiate Hearthstone National Championship. My name is Cora Georgiou, and I am joined on the desk by the one, the only, Brian Kibler. We just saw the first match of this tournament, a UT Dallas mirror with the Engineers reigning supreme over the Liberal Arts team, and we are going to be getting into our second match very shortly. But before then, we do want to remind you all that you can go and start the conversation at Team Tespa tweet or on Facebook/Team Tespa. Ask us anything. Ask us, why Kibler's hair looks the way it is. Ask us.
Genetics.
Genetics. Okay, well, so I guess don't ask that because you have the answer already. But yeah, feel free to weigh in on the games so far, weigh in on the tournament, and let us know what you think. We do actually have a tweet that has been tweeted to at Team Tespa from at Cheese Curls. Do you think we will see more women competing in 2017? Now, I might be a little biased, but I certainly hope so. Do I think we will? Yeah, absolutely. I think every year there's more and more women getting into the scene, and it's just a matter of, do they choose to stick with it? Do they have a platform to really break out? And I think Hearthstone is so inclusive now that absolutely.
I mean, I think there's great high-level representatives of women in the Hearthstone scene now. Hafu, Eloise, both are players who have a lot of competitive experience. And then, you're making a good example, too, out here. So.
I'm doing my best, Brian. We're seeing. It's been a long road, but I'm certainly happy to be where I am. So yeah, tweet at Team Tespa, and you too can have your tweet featured on the screen. I know, very exciting. Very exciting. All right, let's go ahead and get into our next match. It is going to be Northern Arizona University taking on the University of Washington.
Ooh, this looks like a tough matchup. I mean, if I were just a hound from On the Hunt, I would be really scared about going up against Sneed's Old Shredder.
Sneed's Old Shredder is a big deal, but now he can death rattle into Shifter Xeris?
Ooh, I actually got Shifter Xeris off Confessor Paltris recently, and it was really a bummer.
Oh, man.
But more to the point in this match, we have pretty similar lineups here. We do see Warrior, Shaman, and Warlock in both lineups. And then we see the difference of Mage versus Rogue. So I would suspect that there's a very strong chance that we see Pirates coming out of these Warrior decks, Pirates coming out of these Shaman decks, Pirates coming out of the Rogue, and then Renos out of the other ones. So.
Heck, I've seen Pirates and Warlocks, Bloodsail Corsair, throw out patches in a zoo deck, who knows? But yeah, very similar lineups, certainly nothing too wild coming out here. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at Northern Arizona University, a.k.a. Spider, Olek, and the Only Berry, Exercise Science, Biomed Computer Science, and Computer Science. So far, we haven't seen any overlapping majors. It's really great to see a lot of diversity, and Olek does not have a picture, but I'm sure he is raring to go.
Oh, no, we see him. Here he is. So
even better than a picture.
You can see Northern Arizona University team on your screen right there. And they will be going up against the University of Washington, which is a team with a familiar face. Dude7597, who is undecided, but we know likes to play Ultimate Frisbee, and also has a great video of him singing Light and Nerdy on the internet. I don't know if I'd say he can rap, but he can try.
Okay, he has rapped.
He has.
It happened. It's documented.
Spiral, who's studying biochemistry, and Alpha, who is studying business.
Yeah, this is another great-looking group of guys. There's Dude7597 on the left. His frosted tips have since vanished, but you know what? I think this is just as good of a look for him.
I think Alpha's hiding off to the right there. I saw an arm.
Maybe he's a little camera shy. Who knows? But yeah, this is certainly going to be a fantastic matchup. Obviously, these guys are all college students, so Hearthstone, not the first priority. College is very important. You're spending a lot of money. You want to get that degree. But Dude7597 is an example of a college student who is also a very high-caliber player. We saw him in the Hearthstone Championship Tour last year. He had some really fantastic finishes. So not only can you be a college student, but you can also be an incredibly high-caliber Hearthstone player as well.
Yeah, we've actually seen a number of players come through the Tespa system and make their presence known on the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Dude being one of them, as well as the eventual BlizzCon competitor, Hotmouth, who was a player for the Reno team, I believe, last year. He couldn't play in the finals of that season because he was playing in BlizzCon.
I think it's a good enough excuse.
Okay, fine. But yeah, we see teams are ready to go, and Washington with the Rogue versus Northern Arizona University playing Warlock. And this is typically a matchup that's very difficult for the Warlock to win.
Yeah, the Rogue, if they can get a really fast start. Edwin Van Cleef is incredibly threatening. Questing Adventurer is really strong. The Warlock has a very difficult time with dealing with large minions. Their single target removal is not nearly as efficient as the Mage, which is why the Reno Mage is considered, a lot more consistent against a lot of these aggressive decks like the Rogue. And you know what? With Dude 7597 behind this Rogue deck, it's definitely scary.
And this is a really awkward draw from the Rogue, though. The double questing Adventurer, Azure Drake, they don't have any of the early Pirates. They don't have really anything to fuel these questings that picked up 2 Cold Bloods in a row. This is the sort of draw that, at least right now, looks like the kind of game the Rogue can easily lose. And this is one of the vulnerabilities of these Rogue decks. They are pretty combo oriented, not just a combo mechanic, but they are fairly reliant on drawing specific combinations of cards. That's been sort of less so with the introduction of Small Time Buccaneer, giving them just a very aggressive game plan available to them. But regardless, they have lots of cards that rely heavily on cards like Auctioneer to give them value. But the Warlock, though, it just has life tap. It's kind of get to hang out and draw even more cards.
It's a pretty good hero power. Prior to the Small Time Buccaneer Patches edition in the Rogue deck, the Miracle Rogue had a very slow start. Oftentimes you'd rely on things like Backstab and SI7 Agent, but now a lot of the Rogues aren't even running SI because they'd rather cut him, play the Questing Adventurers, and simply deal with the early game with Small Time Buccaneer, with Patches, with South Sea Deckhand in certain cases. Unfortunately for Washington, they don't have any of those cards in this case. No Preparation, no Counterfeit Coin, no Tomb Pillager. So it's a pretty awkward hand.
I'm kind of wondering what is going through Washington's head right now, what they're sort of debating, because they have a couple of options here. They could just attack face, redagger, which does obviously 1 damage and doesn't really use a dagger charge. They can cycle their Fan of Knives, so just basically play that to draw another card, or they could just play a Questing Adventurer. They have 2 of them, and Reno Warlock only has so many interactive cards at this phase of the game.
Yeah.
And they basically have Demon Wrath,
Shadow Bolt,
and other than that, not all that much that can really be able to kill even just a 2/2 here. But take the most conservative route, really, and decide to just fan it up and pick up a Tomb Pillager, which is a very nice draw.
Yeah, it worked out for them. Their curve is certainly shaping out to be better than their early game was, but NAU has an abundance of resources here. Imp Gang Boss really very difficult for the Rogue to remove. We don't see Eviscerate in hand. Obviously, the Tomb Pillager challenges it quite nicely, but the 1/1 that's left around could pose some trouble if they don't clear it off with the weapon, which I doubt will happen, but
One interesting option that NAU did have last turn would be just to have played Doomsayer. Because if they just played Doomsayer, it makes it very difficult for Washington to develop anything that turn, and then they don't necessarily, but the problem being, of course, they don't necessarily have anything powerful to do this turn after the Doomsayer. What they'd love to do is be able to Doomsayer this turn, which obviously won't really work because there's a
there's 6
Tomb Pillager on the board. Because if they could Doomsayer and then get a clear board to play Emperor Thaurissan on, that would be sort of the dream.
Yeah, the Doomsayer going into turn 4 for the Rogue can definitely mess up their plans very easily. Kazakus coming into the hand of NAU, Doomsayer actually a lot of times can really mess with Kazakus because of the resurrect a number of minions. The Doomsayer can make that a bit riskier, but in this case, I think it's not really what you're thinking about. You're thinking, how do I remove these minions very quickly? You're not thinking long game at this point, although it's very likely that this game will go quite long.
There's a number of options here for Northern Arizona University. They choose to go Kazakus, but the rope is already burning. Wow, they just took a 10?
Okay, maybe they are thinking long.
That is ambitious. A 10-mana spell. Are they? Wow. I am quite surprised by that decision because this is a matchup that is very, very fast, or at least can be, and is usually not won or lost based on having a huge effect like that. It's fairly marginal. You need to be able to survive against a big thing, then a big thing.
Yeah.
And often the 5-mana potion is fantastic.
Yeah, if you can take the 4 damage AoE, that kills a Concealed Gadgetzin.
Right. the flashpoints for the AoE is really 4 because of Gadget Zan, because of Tomb Pillager, because of Azure Drake. And then even just polymorph a single thing. Often you don't even necessarily want to polymorph everything. If you're taking, those are often the things you're looking for here. Those in armor are generally the go-to modes of that potion. But I'm really curious to see how they're going to maneuver this game to try and get value out of that 10-mana potion.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see what they chose. I'd imagine, I believe we saw the 6 damage AoE as an option.
Well, Freeze was definitely a mode that they took, which is... can be powerful, but as a 10-mana effect, you're really you're really hoping to get like AoE demon
plus,
or resummon. But at the same time, resummon, as you mentioned, is much weaker in a game where you have a Doomsayer. So
a Doomsayer that you really would like to play because at some point,
you probably need
Warlock,
to use at some point.
You have to get back on board. That's the only way you're going
like
to win
this turn, a great potential sequence is attack into your Azure Drake and play Demon Wrath into Doomsayer. Because you wipe out the opposing board, you don't let them play a threat on 6 mana, which is potentially Gadget Zan into draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are going to see that. So looks like they're going to Demon Wrath, and I would suspect they likely choose to Doomsayer, but they've taken some fairly unorthodox lines so far.
Yeah, the Doomsayer sets up really nicely for the Emperor on the following turn.
Right, yeah. This is sort of what I mentioned previously, exactly the kind of situation you want to have. Empty board into Emperor, and that's really powerful.
But we'll see. It seems like they're really heavily contemplating something else. But
they do go with the Doomsayer, and this we see University of Washington just chowing down on pizza.
It's dinner time. I can't blame them. Brain food. You need to be able to focus on the game. The pizza does that.
I mean, I remember when I was in college, I'd always be like, sort of study break type things. Yeah. Would serve free pizza, and everyone would just go because they just wanted free pizza. So
had free pizza.
I can see. I mean,
my college had.
Well, it'd be like my fraternity had would have like free pizza like during like finals week or whatever.
Fraternity Kibler. Yeah. Very interesting. My college did not have Greek life, unfortunately. I went to a very small liberal arts college. We had smoothies.
You had smoothies?
We had smoothies. We had a smoothie place. And we had Chicago winter for 4 months, which was great. But even less painful is this hand from the Rogue right now, which is still very, very painful.
Quite the segue. Less painful than a Chicago winter.
Less painful than a Chicago winter, but still horribly painful for the Warlock.
But yeah, now Northern Arizona University, which is not a cold place. They do have,
lucky them.
They do have that Emperor Tharson available to them this turn. I'm actually really curious as to what they're debating because this is kind of the dream. Well, it does put them in a situation where they would potentially be playing Emperor without any combo pieces in play. So they may, I think, be overvaluing the importance of reducing combo pieces because this is not a matchup where combo is crucial. No. This is a matchup where what is important is having sort of big things that your opponent can't deal with and killing their things and surviving. Yes, you do want to potentially have the option of comboing, but they even still have the coin, which can enable them to combo without any cost reductions.
Yeah, I mean, you need to, essentially, the Rogue has so few minions that if you can remove the Questings, you can remove the Edwin. The Gadgetsons only represent so much damage, and if they're cycling through their deck, obviously they're finding spells, but that just means they go to fatigue quicker. So if you can remove these minions, then you will likely just win the long game. Like, it's not even really a contest there, so...
Often you're just a kill-em-all strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want that dead, and that dead, and that dead, and that dead,
and now I win,
and now
because you have no more stuff.
All right. I actually used to win, like, Dragon Mage or old-school Reno Mage, like, before Kazakus was a thing. I would play against rogues and, like, duplicate my my anti-heal bots and all this stuff.
Just grind the classic Grinder Mage.
All right, well, it will be an Auctioneer turn, and yeah, it's just Auctioneer, coin, Edwin. So an 8/8 Edwin is pretty strong. And one of the big things here about the way that Northern Arizona University played this turn is that they just kind of allowed that to happen. It allowed Washington to take a purely proactive turn because there was no big threat they had to deal with. If Emperor had been in play, they would have been basically doing what they could to try and figure out a way to kill Emperor, because they really don't want to allow multiple Emperor ticks to come down. But at least for Northern Arizona University, they have the 4/5 on board. They can kill the Auctioneer, but they are still in a spot where they have the Spellbreaker to silence. Oh, they're actually not even going to bother to attack.
Yeah,
this works out great with the way that their mana lines up. They're just going to go ahead and kill everything, and this does sort of line up with kill them all. But I'm still a little bit curious.
You don't normally want to put yourself in that reactive position if you don't have to, and they didn't really have to. I mean, they could have played the Emperor and essentially tried to get that board control, try to become the aggressor in this matchup, which is very valuable against the Rogue. If the Rogue is playing catch-up, then they don't have a chance to develop their own minions. Then their gadgets then can lead to them being dead because you have board and they don't. So the fact that they put themselves in this reactive position, clearly it paid off, which was really great for them. But had Washington had a Conceal in hand, for instance, this could be very different. Yeah.
And but now Washington, they're kind of a weird spot. They're out of any kind of spells they can really use alongside Auctioneer. Looks like they're going to go ahead and go on the Adventurer route. And, get themselves patches, Fan of Knives.
It's risky going into turn 8. I mean, you don't want to be expending so much onto board, which is... I think they're doing a good job of hedging their bets here. They're not expending all of their resources onto the board because obviously turn 8 is twisting now their turn. So, but, I mean, pretty much any form of AoE can clear this board pretty easily.
They could Defender plus Shadow Flame.
Yeah.
Like Defender of Argus, attack face, Shadow Flame. You are kind of scared that you don't have taunts anymore, because there is the risk, of course, of the big Leroy Jensen Cold Blood burst. Though, Northern Arizona is at 27, so they got to feel at least somewhat safe. Yeah, and this is pretty telegraphed for that Shadow Flame.
Honestly, I think the Shadow Flame is really valuable in this matchup. If you don't have Twisting Nether, how are you going to kill a concealed gadget except with, a large-ish minion plus Shadow Flame? So I could have even seen maybe holding on to that, but this obviously is a much cleaner clear. Removes an additional 6 damage off the board than just, Argus plus the, Refreshment Vendor, for instance.
Yeah, it definitely does. And the Refreshment Vendor would have been pretty safe if they just decided to trade in as well, though. And yeah, Washington is going to go ahead and play this out. They're going to keep holding on to that Gadgetzan because they only have preparation. They're not really setting themselves up for a big turn if they were to just Gadgetzan prep. And then a Power Overwhelming picked up by Northern Arizona. They actually could just play their 10-mana potion. I don't quite know what the first mode was. I believe we definitely saw a freeze effect on it.
I believe I saw 6 damage, but who knows? We'll find out. I mean, obviously, Washington has 14 damage in hand with Leroy Cold Blood. So if they can pick up an Eviscerate or 2, would be even better. Then they are very close to finishing this game if NAU doesn't.
Dirty Rat's pretty interesting. If you Dirty Rat Leroy or Questing, either of those is fantastic. Even Dirty Ratting an Auctioneer, it has to be pretty attractive too.
Anything that they Dirty Rat, they can kill with the Power Overwhelming.
And the body of Dirty Rat is not trivial either. It doesn't really interact terribly well with the Tomb Pillager because your opponent can just attack through it fairly readily. But all right, well, just gonna go ahead and
hold off.
Yeah, put some pressure on here. Ooze down that weapon, and they are.
They're definitely considering it, but they choose to hold off.
All right, well. Washington now are the ones kind of in a tough spot. They're facing down a lot of pressure. They know their opponent has a Kazakus potion in hand. And with that much damage on the board, they have to be afraid, is this just a damage potion? Are we running the risk of just getting ourselves killed next turn?
At the same time, they have 14 in hand, 5 on board, 20 total damage with the hero power, but they're not quite there.
Right.
And they need to find some way to clear off this board. Swashbuckler could do work.
What's in the box? Ooh, it's a Dark Battler rebuy.
Okay, Power Overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, no, they can't get. It's only a 1-cost card from their own class, so they can get a Sinister Strike.
Sinister Strike.
Yeah, they find themselves a Sinister Strike, perhaps, or maybe they need Shield Bearer to keep themselves alive.
Yeah, it's definitely an option.
I mean, they have to be at least a little bit afraid here because they're down to 16. There is quite a bit of damage on the opposing side of the board. I'm curious. Yeah, the Sinister Strike at least also goes along with the Gadget Stand, also increases their overall burst potential. Oh, they are going to take the Shield Bearer, so they are feeling a little afraid of what's coming down. We see a little bit of a laugh from Northern Arizona as they shall not pass.
They shall not pass. Taking the defensive line, but I think that's certainly warranted. Washington thinks that they can win a board game if they are able to find a nice turn to Gadget. They still have that questing in hand, which obviously can represent quite a bit of damage, so just playing it a little bit longer. Obviously, NAU still has some healing potential in the deck.
Yeah, there's still all kinds of tools left for Northern Arizona. They still have Reno Jackson left. They've really been playing a kind of just slow and board-based game. Washington didn't have much early pressure, so they have really kind of struggled to get much going.
Very telling that NAU is still at 26.
Yeah.
This many turns into the game without having played Reno. The Rogue, normally, as you were saying at the beginning, very favored in this matchup if they are able to get that explosive start and those large minions to back it up. But NAU been able to really hold out this long.
This is potentially what, they have 7, 8, 9 plus the 14. They're still short damage-wise, but
it is close.
I mean, they have the Auctioneer now, though. They can potentially just kind of go, especially with that preparation draw. They could trade into, if they needed to, they could trade into the Emperor, get a coin, and just start going with Auctioneer. Though that may put them in a situation that they don't feel like they can really contest the board well enough. But if they have Sap, like if for instance they find Sap can very easily. Yeah, it looks like they're actually going to go with the Auctioneer, or rather the questing first. So here it goes. This is going to be that big explosive turn you've seen so many times from Miracle.
Yeah, no, I like this. They think that they can win the board, and if that fails, they still have quite a bit of damage in hand. So yeah, just kind of going all out.
The Eviscerate kind of gives them pause here. Ooh, there's a Conceal. You can Eviscerate down one of these minions.
You can clear off the ooze with the Peddler, and then just hit face Conceal. All right, I think it might be time to see what that Kazakus Potion does.
Well, it is definitely going to come up big, and we see a bit of a laugh there. Ooh, they found a Sap as the last
That would have been
card.
nice to use.
This 10-mana Kazakus Potion that they picked up, I think it was turn 4, wasn't it? It was turn 4.
It was quite a while ago.
That it definitely has, it's deal 8, freeze 3. Oh, it's actually just lethal!
Okay.
8
well,
is just the burst they needed. And we see, wow, we were like, okay, is this an AoE? Is this? No, but it's just burn you out. They basically just took Pyroblast and got the game over.
8 damage, freeze 3. That is a really very strange Kazakus potion.
It's an eclectic potion.
Maybe it was just a stroke of genius on turn 4 because they figured it out and actually had Washington prep Sap the Drake. It wouldn't have been lethal.
They wouldn't have died, right.
But just not enough time in the turn. NAU taking game number 1 against Washington.
And that's generally a tough matchup.
Yeah.
Usually the Rogue, if it has a reasonable draw and things line up like it often does, the Rogue tends to win that matchup.
Yes.
So that's pretty big for Northern Arizona, getting that win in the books. We see the lineups there. Interesting, Northern Arizona banning their own Shaman. I'm curious what the thought process there was.
Yeah.
Washington banning away their own Warrior. We've actually seen a couple of self-bans of the Warrior so far. And I wonder if that's sort of recognition that the opposing lineup looks like it's very strong against.
The Pirate Warrior can struggle against the Reno decks in certain cases. If they do get very good draws, then that might be the reason behind banning away the Warrior. But the Shaman is, and I was saying this earlier, it's sort of a deck that you just kind of assume they're going to get a win with eventually.
I'm trying to think of the thought processes in banning
It's just so versatile.
Shaman. Well, if they do win, we're definitely asking them that in the interview. But it is game number 2 here. Northern Arizona playing Reno Mage, and then it is looks to be aggro Shaman. Could be actually.
Could be Jade.
It could be Jade's.
A more mid-range variant.
Yeah, there's so many versions of Shaman that are popular these days.
Yeah.
And even seeing Small Time Buccaneer, this could be very aggressive version. It can be a mid-range version that has the early pirate package into late game Jades. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's just There's so many different kinds of shamans floating around. You've got full aggro with Flame
And they're
Wreath.
all good.
You've got, okay, well, there's a Flame Wreath Faceless, so likely just your standard aggressive shaman. But even, shaman decks running around Control Shaman. With Ancestral Spirit, Shamans playing Evolve. I think you were actually playing for a few days. It's a fun card. Devolve also.
Basically
really
makes your deck worse than putting pirates in it, but it also makes your deck
more
sweeter.
Fun.
Yeah,
So
you feel
fun.
better about yourself and your life
I didn't
decisions.
play pirates, but you know what? I feel okay about it. And it's sometimes that's important. But in a tournament format, what's more important is probably picking up that win. So Pirates makes quite a bit of sense. And actually, Washington's hand looking very strong here. NAU also, however, has a really sweet curve.
Yeah, and NAU has pretty much the most important cards in the matchup. The Doomsayer early in the game can really shut down the early aggression. And then Reno Jackson, of course, is extremely powerful. Washington, I think, might be debating whether they want to just play either Trog or Small Time Buccaneer, or if they want to potentially coin out the other one. If they do coin, they run the risk of getting kind of blown out by the Doomsayer, because they won't have enough damage to punch through it on turn 2. Shake of the head, Buccaneer again. Yeah. But yeah, and we're actually going to see, I imagine, very likely that Doomsayer come down. But there's a lot of threats here. Like, even if you Doomsayer in turn 2, given the power level, explosive burst potential, it's actually going to die if they play it, because there's the Flame Tongue and Lightning Bolt.
Mm-hmm. Although, you know what, saving the coin for Washington and
it's
not
crucial.
Overloading means that they can play the Flame Wreath Faceless even earlier.
It's true.
The Faceless against the Reno Mage is one of the main tools that they will need to beat this deck, because the Mage has so many strong single target removals, but the only thing that they can really kill the Flame Wreath with is Polymorph.
Mm-hmm. Some number of Mage decks do have Flame Lance. It's a reasonable tool against both the Flame Wreath Faceless as well as the threats out of Reno Warlock.
Yeah.
Which is the way that you lose against the Reno Warlock is most often playing like a big Twilight Drake or Mountain Giant early on, or even just against Dragon Priest. You have the additional tool to deal with those. Mm-hmm. All right, well, and now we see the possibility of just Flame Tongue, both minions attack, coin Lightning Bolt. But as you mentioned, that does more significantly reduce the damage available the mana available in future turns. So Flame Faces will have to wait, but they do retain their board presence here and keep Northern Arizona under pressure.
Yeah, kind of actually an interesting decision there to choose to let your board be killed by the Doomsayer, but then you get to coin out Flame Wreath on the following turn, or to choose to save the board and develop the Flame Tongue. Obviously, they chose to develop the Flame Tongue. It creates a much stronger board, and they still have options for the next turn, but that's definitely an interesting decision to have to make there.
And there were actually a number of options here for Northern Arizona. They chose to play Babbling Book and picked up a Vaporize, as you see there on the screen. Their other option that I think I may have liked better may have just been playing your Manic Soul Caller? Or Soulcaster.
Yes.
I play that card a lot. The Manic guy. The Manic Soulcaster. Because right now that's actually challenging both all of your opponent's minions on board, and they have to double trade into it, and it threatens to kill the Flame Totem on the next board. Your opponent's overloaded, so doesn't necessarily have great ways to deal with it either. But we do see Northern Arizona, pick up what could be a very tempting Dirty Rat, but it could go terribly wrong.
Yeah, that could come back to bite him. The Manic Soulcaster is actually a really interesting card in the deck, because against control, it can get you an additional Kazakus, an additional Reno Jackson. It can be really valuable that way, but against aggro, it's just a 3-mana 3/4. And that's pretty good.
Comes down, yeah, absolutely. And now, having taken the line that they did, they just have a 1/1 on board, which doesn't challenge anything. They can't really kill anything without using mana, which doesn't allow them to develop at all. So here, they play the Refreshment Vendor, which gets them some life, and 3/5 is pretty valuable. But they are pretty significantly behind in terms of being able to contest this board.
All right, they decide to run the Babbling Book into the Small Time Buccaneer, setting up for potentially a hero power plus a 3-drop on the following turn.
Oh, I actually have just a vision of how this game's going to go.
Is it a beautiful vision?
Well, they're gonna play Flame Wreath Faceless, trade into the 3/5 potentially, attack face. The the Buccaneer's going to get pinged off, and then the Flame of Faceless will get vaporized next turn. If you just look at how the mana lines up. Like
that's true.
The way that everything looks like it's going to work here, this is going to happen, and it's going to be so sad for Washington.
Yeah, because they can trade the Trog into the refreshment vendor.
Everything actually works out. This is what's going to happen. We're going to see,
if NAU chooses to play the Vaporize this turn, which I have to imagine they
Ping
would
Vaporizes, it cleanly removes your opponent's only minion that is not a Flame Wraith Faceless and sets up a secret your opponent cannot possibly reasonably predict as Vaporize. Yeah, this is...
All right, let's see if Dude can get some next level reads here, because this is potentially game losing for Washington.
I can expect some emotes that might happen in the chat when this goes to the face right here.
They could be many and varied.
I mean, they may not do it. They may not attack.
Yeah.
But they would miss 9 damage to play around Vaporize. And what are the odds it's Vaporize?
Is it worth it any other time?
They can check for Potion Polymorph. They can check for Mirror Entity without any sort of additional. I mean, look at NAU. Look at they're just sitting there.
No.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, look at Dude.
Takes it out. Look at how excited
Man.
is. And even Washington, they can't help but smile.
How often do you get the opportunity to Babbling Book of Vaporize to your opponent's Flame Wreath Faceless?
4 mana 7/7, no problem. We got Vaporize.
Man.
Look at the look of just despair.
You have 30 slots in your deck for Reno Mage. Just Vaporize good enough, Kibler. It's killing 4 mana 7/7s everywhere.
They just got it off the Babbling Book.
Hide your 4 mana.
Who could know?
Hide your 7/7s, because Vaporize is killing all of them out there.
Oh, God. And we're already saying this could be a tough matchup for the Aggro Shaman. And that's the sort of thing that, it makes it even harder by a lot. And look at Northern Arizona's hand. They have that Reno Jackson. Whoa, they picked up
Medivh the Guardian. Very cool.
One of my favorite cards these days. Sadly, I don't even play him that much because, well, I play against all Pirates. But
yeah, he's a fun inclusion.
He's awesome.
Play him into Inkmaster Salia plus, Firelands Portal or Flame Strike. Awesome.
But him and Inkmaster Salia, you get a Wisp.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah,
it makes it 0 mana?
Yeah.
Oh, no. The interaction.
The next one you cast costs 0, which means the Medivh Atiesh, the weapon that you get, gives you a 0-cost spell. Ooh.
Cruel the Unshackled. Now, that actually works really interestingly with Kazakus. If they choose the 3 demons from Kazakus, Cruel will summon them all down.
Yeah, it's great.
Because it is a Reno deck. A lot of the time when you take the 3 demons from Kazakus, it'll give you Cruel, so you'll get him plus 2 others. But here, the value. It's fantastic.
I've had a lot of games with Illidan after getting a Kazakus potion for demons. What's that? Fellbloom? No, Fellbloom's a damage one. I'm trying to remember the name of that one. I can't quite.
No, I never actually pay attention to the name of the Kazakus potion.
They picked the Cabal Chemist. They decided that
they'd rather win the game than have fun.
Well, they decided that it could be a boat. You could have this Cruel the Unshackled, but
never
with Cabal Chemist, we can get a boat.
Get Greater Healing Potion.
But yeah,
you can get Dragonfire Potion from it now too.
They are actually Northern Arizona is pretty much in the position that they could just kind of have fun. I mean, obviously this is a
I mean, they look like they're having fun already.
Oh, certainly.
But Washington had pizza, so
they did, yeah. And now that their pizza's gone, things have gone.
They've gotten very somber.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a
the reactions out of these guys. It's some of my favorite parts.
We vaped your 7/7, but you got a good Maelstrom Portal.
Person, so unlucky. No, I mean everything's still looking very nice for NAU.
Ooh,
there's the
Kazakus. So this is definitely an interesting spot. The Chemist actually is a lot better than it used to be. The Chemist, before a recent patch, couldn't get Dragonfire Potion. For some reason, it wasn't included in the potion list that Chemist was tagged with. But now they can get Dragonfire Potion. You actually have a pretty high chance of getting Area Effect. They do pick up a Blast Crystal Potion.
It's pretty good. There's your second 4 mana 7/7 killer.
It's true. It's
your
true.
1 mana more Vaporize.
And that can give them some sort of safety to play Dirty Rat, and yep, nothing comes down. So you often see that at this stage of the game. If your opponent had had a big minion,
they would
probably would have played it. You know, probably would have played rather than playing a Jade Claws and Toteming. They would have played a 7/7. And then they pick up Aya Blackpaw right afterwards.
It's good for them. I mean, Aya Blackpaw's
it's still one of the stronger cards in the matchup for sure. Aya can give you a ability to have a strong attrition plan as well as just immediate threat. You know, you're generating 7 power on the board with this one card right now, and that's without even having a significant Jade presence so far.
Yeah, so they're going to go ahead and drop down the Aya, sacrifice their own board, and clear off their weapon to be able to clear off that Dirty Rat. And there's Flame Strike. NAU really just has
kind of an embarrassment
of worry
of riches
about at this point.
Yeah, they have Kazakus, they have Reno, they have Flame Strike, they have Spot Removal. Pretty much anything you could want, they've got available.
Doesn't have much, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, NAU can Kazakus and Soulcaster the Kazakus, can Reno and Soulcaster the Reno, can play Medivh and just kind of have a party at this point. Medivh does throw good parties. Or at least that's what I hear.
A game. So kind of you to join me.
And Washington is, to their credit, going to be playing this game out. Dude 7597, of course, a fantastic player, trying to lead his team to victory, but all the odds are just kind of stacked against him at this point.
Well, his teammates are actually also fairly accomplished players. His teammate, actually, I was just looking. Teammate Alpha actually said that he has gotten legend in every single season. So, pretty significant accomplishment there. And Spiral actually also won a Tavern Hero qualifier. So, dude is certainly the most accomplished of the bunch with his HCA performance. But, definitely a whole crowd of fairly competitive players.
Absolutely. And the Jades are growing. But unfortunately for Washington, this aggressive Shaman deck doesn't run cards like Jade Chieftain. It doesn't run Jade Spirit, so they're not going to get much bigger at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still just so much value in the Northern Arizona University hand in between Medivh, Kazakus. If things even start to get scary, they can just Reno. They have to be thinking, okay, how can we possibly lose this game? And that's a skill that I think that a lot of players don't necessarily take seriously enough.
Yeah.
Because in many cases, players will be really far ahead, and they'll have all the tools they feel like they need to win. And then they get overconfident and lose because
start misusing tools, yeah. And I mean, at the very least, you get more information about your opponent's deck.
It's true. In Conquest, if you feel like you can sort of sit back and let your opponent give you information, then if you're beating that deck, it's valuable because they have to play it again.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the multiple legend finishes for Alpha and Spiral winning a Tavern Hero qualifier is very impressive. Looking at Northern Arizona University,
they kind of wrote
Olek
jokes.
was raised by wolves.
They're full
Nicholas,
of jokes over there.
a.k.a. Spider, once predicted that he would open 2 legendaries in one pack, and then he did. So, I mean, that's impressive.
I mean, it's not really that impressive. It's 50-50. Either it happens or it doesn't.
You're absolutely correct,
That's how
Brian.
math works.
You're absolutely correct. And unfortunately,
Listen,
I've
studied
flipped tails every single
school, okay?
time. I have never won that 50-50 for the 2 legendaries. Somebody contact Ben Brode. My game is rigged.
Yeah, Northern Arizona here, they're kind of figuring out how best to use their resources and wondering what sort of threat they're actually under. And it turns out, if they don't heal, there is the chance that they die. Because there is that Lava Burst in hand. They're only at 11. They have Reno in hand. They could just play their Reno. A lot of times, I think people want to milk as much value as they can out of Reno, but they can just Blast Crystal and play Reno. Yeah, they're going to go ahead. There's the Reno. And, yep, going to go ahead and Blast Crystal and attack. Let's see what's you're going to get. Ooh. It's the Daring Reporter.
Daring Reporter, yes. Gains +1/+1 every time your opponent draws a card. That's a cool card. It's a great mechanic. Not being utilized very much.
I saw that actually when I was playing in Batstone, Firebat's Firebat's event that he had right after Mean Streets, where every deck had to include a certain number of cards. That got played in Reno Warlock, but
yeah, I mean, why not?
But yeah, and we are going to see a 2-game lead for Northern Arizona as they agree. Washington rather agrees that there is no coming back from that.
Yeah, the second you see the Reno drop down, it's pretty much all over there. And you know what? To Washington's credit, they played that game out. They did actually have a chance there where if Northern Arizona had maybe gotten a little bit too greedy, had decided not to play the Reno, that they could have potentially come back and killed them on the following turn.
If they hadn't played it that turn and they rolled spell damage, they would have.
Yeah, then they would have just won. So
but Reno Jackson, they were rich.
It was pretty great. They potentially could be making quite a bit of money off of this tournament if they continue to do as well as they're doing. And you know what? This could actually be our second 3-0 of the day if NAU manages to pull out a win with their Warrior here.
They do have their Warrior left, and we haven't seen what type of Warrior it is. We're probably likely going to be some form of Pirate Warrior.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Control Warrior have too much of a presence in the tournament scene these days. Pirate Warrior, there's a number of variants, much like there are any kind of pirate deck these days. There's the ultra sort of aggressive full pirate package warrior that often has like Mortal Strike, Heroic Strike, South Sea, and that appears to be what they are playing. We see a battery of weapons in their hand, though this is actually one of the matchups that caused Pirate Warrior sort of initial ascent when Mean Streets was first released to kind of come down to earth, because the aggro shaman deck, it's got bigger things than you with Flaming Faceless, and crucially it has cards like Feral Spirits that can just brick wall your charge minions and your big weapons late in the game.
You know what? Normally the Wrath of Air Totem is ideal. It's what the Shaman wants. But in this case, the Stoneclaw Totem is the MVP.
This is a pretty poor draw, at least initially, from Washington. Obviously, they have Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem, which is not poor at all. It's great. But following that up, 2 Lava Bursts, not necessarily what they're looking for. But yeah, we see the Fiery War Axe will go ahead and take care of the Tunnel Trog, want to avoid that getting out of control at all. And they even have the upgrade to take down Totem Golem next turn.
Yeah, looking like a fantastic start for NAU. And like you were saying, there are several variants of this aggressive Pirate Warrior. I'm actually partial to the Dragon Warrior variant. I think it's personally a little bit more fun. Also,
it's got dragons in it.
It has dragons in it.
Oh my god, second upgrade.
And it performs very well against more mid-range decks. It has a lot more staying power in the late game. But this aggressive Pirate Warrior is just so... You can just blow out your opponent so quickly. And that's what NAU is looking to do here, and Washington is going to have a hard time stopping them with their current hand.
Yeah, I mean, here, just a single upgrade can kill the Totem Golem. If they want, they can double upgrade, which, while it doesn't do any relevant additional damage to the Totem Golem, allows them to attack next turn and not worry about losing their weapon. So they could play, say, Frothing Berserker and attack into something and still have a 5-attack weapon remaining.
It essentially leaves them with an Arcanite Reaper after attacking
yeah,
this Totem
if they
Golem.
upgrade again, yeah, they just have an Arcanite Reaper remaining in play. It's just gross.
Yeah, and then the Frothing Berserker is actually probably one of the best cards in the Pirate Warrior deck. I mean, you've got Patches, Small Time Buccaneer, all of these insane weapons, but the Frothing Berserker, which has been around since Hearthstone began, is
so
still
powerful.
just one of the strongest cards in the class.
And this is it. I'm pretty surprised they chose not to upgrade here, because yes, you can save upgrade and use it alongside, say, an actual Arcanite Reaper.
Yeah.
But this matchup is so much about tempo, so much about actually getting a big thing to the board and sticking with it, that making themselves lose their weapon if they want to back up a Frothing Berserker next turn feels pretty dangerous.
So NAU, maybe what they're thinking is their hand right now doesn't have too much damage. I mean, Heroic Strike obviously is 4, but other than that, it was 2/3 mana minions. So maybe they're thinking they have to try and play for board a little bit. Not entirely sure. I think I would have liked to see them upgrade as well.
This gives them the patches immediately. They can take out the Spell Power Totem, which it looks like they will. And one thing that they don't necessarily want. Wow, I am super surprised by that decision.
That's a little strange, because next turn they could have upgraded and then played the Frothing easily on turn 4, which would have given them an additional 5 damage.
They have a South Sea, so now it doesn't have charge if they want to play it. I'm just honestly really baffled by that decision. Do they just want to be able to maybe look into Heroic Strike into something?
It seems like they're essentially committing to holding the South Sea deckhand until they draw their next weapon.
Well, they have upgrade. So they can just upgrade if they really want a weapon. And I mean, here, I think they want to upgrade, but they're leaving themselves with a small, very small weapon, rather than having a huge weapon if they had just kept their charge.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the upgrade represented 5 extra damage on the Fiery War Axe.
The thing is, if they expected their opponent to play Jade Lightning, then they expected to attack into the Jade Lightning Golem. That does lead you to thinking, okay, maybe I want to get this weapon hit in now, so I'm not using a strong hit of a weapon that could have gone face into that.
Maybe they would have
using
rather had
one of the 3 charges of this instead of the 1 extra charge they get from the upgrade on the big weapon. Though they have the patches remaining too that could trade into the 1/1, so it's kind of a weird spot.
Yeah, Washington definitely suffering at the hands of not having a weapon in this case. 2 South Sea deckhands in hand, but it looks like they might have to burn a Lava Burst on this Frothing Berserker.
Frothing is terrifying. Frothing is a minion that if you leave it in play, you can just die. Yeah. In this spot, say they totemed, they use their hero power. Okay, well, you're just feeding my Frothing Berserker.
And the thing is, if Washington can pick up Flame Wreath Faceless at pretty much any point in this game, from now on they'll be able to play it along with a burn spell on the same turn or a weapon if they pick up a weapon as well. Then they'll still put themselves in a position where their minion will inevitably be the largest minion on the board because the Pirate Warrior just does not have anything bigger than a Kor'kron Elite or a Leroy.
Oh, it's got Frothing Berserker.
It's got Frothing Berserker. I mean, so they're still not in a terrible, terrible spot. I like getting down the Blood Mage. It cycles, which is really important in this case.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because the way that this game has played out, because Washington played the Jade Lightning into the Blood Mage Thalnos, they've actually had 2 minions killed by that upgrade, which if they had not attacked face previously, would have potentially not worked out. So we were pretty critical, or at least pretty skeptical of the decision they made earlier. But it has actually worked out exactly right in terms of how the next few turns have played out.
They've just taken a different game plan, essentially. So to upgrade the Fiery War Axe would have been kind of solidifying them on a face plan. But now, against the Shaman of all things, which usually will, 100% of the time win the board game against the Pirate Warrior, they're deciding we can fight for board. We have, 3 mana minions, and that's enough at this point in time. So they went for that strategy, and it was paying off up until Washington drew the Flame Wreath Faceless, and now they might want to just start going face.
Yeah, now this is getting to be a little bit of an awkward situation because they've drawn multiple weapons because they've had this weapon in play. They didn't have a window to play Fiery War Axe because they were attacking last turn with the upgraded weapon. It's not Rusty Hook. That one's, which one is that? Heavy Axe is the upgrade?
I believe so, yes.
Rusty Hook is from N'Zoth's First Mate. And this is one of sometimes the problems with Pirate Warrior is that you do draw redundant weapons that can end up being a big issue.
I mean, you don't have many options here. Did you just put down the Arcanite Reaper and start swinging to face?
I mean, you have no actual upgrades left in your deck. You do have Bloodsail Cultists, which could give you additional charges. And yeah, looks like you're just going to go ahead and trade in and just go face. So they are one with the Smork.
It's not a bad place to be, especially if you're Pirate Warrior. There are... that's pretty much what you want to be in tune with, I suppose. Originally it was Rexxar, now it's Garrosh, and Rexxar is on a milk carton somewhere.
Yeah, he is not even hunting alone. He's actually just taken up gardening.
He's hunting for vegetables.
Hunting wabbits.
All right, so Washington can put down a very large minion here, but they have to feel pretty worried. They're essentially at 12 after NAU hits with that Arcanite Reaper.
Yeah, there's got to be some consideration given to, do we want to just go for hero powers to try and give ourselves a chance of getting Stoneclaw Totem? They've actually seen, I believe, both South Sea deckhands, if I remember correctly, which does mean that there are no small charge minions. Oh dear! Speaking of small things, that's not one of them. That's a Mortal Strike. They're going to be able to hit for 9 with the Reaper this turn, putting their opponents down to just 8. So Mortal Strike can't quite finish it off, but with Fiery War Axe next turn, very well could.
Could do the job. Yeah, Washington needing to either roll a very clutch Stoneclaw Totem here or pick up one of their Feral Spirits. It's definitely possible. They have tools to prevent this damage from face, but inevitably NAU will draw their second Mortal Strike if Washington gives them enough time. So right now they kind of have to balance between, I need to kill you before you kill me, but also I need to stop you from killing me.
Well, I mean, in this sort of position, I feel like NAU really, they've committed to the face plan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They can't use resources to kill a 7/7. It's just not realistic. And Washington's going to be able to play a better board plan. So yeah, they're just going to hit for 9 here. They have armor up. You know, they are warriors. So every turn that goes by, they get a little bit of a better chance to, you know, well, not a little bit better chance, but they can keep themselves alive somewhat. And we see NAU choosing not to play the Fiery War Axe, which is a decision that gives respect to the threat of an ooze from the opponent's deck. He's thinking, oh, you have 3 mana left over. It's like, well, I'm not going to need all this mana next turn. I could just hit you with War Axe and, you know, just try and kill you. Though they don't quite have lethal with Mortal Strike because they are at a very high life total, which does give. Actually, they were at 24. It would have been 9. So no, it wouldn't have mattered if they. This is actually an interesting spot for Washington.
Yeah.
I was actually going through all this in my head.
Because if they put them below 12.
Right, Washington needs to be careful that they don't attack Northern Arizona to 12 or less life, because if they do, they enable Mortal Strike. But at the same time, they need to ensure that they are able to actually win the game over 2 turns.
They can leave them at exactly 13.
And you see the...
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah, and this is a heads-up play from Washington here. They recognize... Oh.
Okay.
Oh, this is actually...
They can kill off the Flame Tongue Totem.
Well, this is if they had played their weapon last turn, they'd have 2 more mana this turn.
And it would be lethal.
They could have taken life tap, just life tapped, gotten themselves into lethal range, and
Mortal Strike.
So they try to respect the threat of ooze, and by doing so, put themselves in a situation where Finley did not give them lethal outs.
Okay, but here's the thing: Aggro Shaman, right? How often are they running Acidic Swamp Ooze? Personally, my Aggro Shaman deck does not have it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the sort of rationale behind.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely makes sense, but I think in this case, they had 2 mana to draw 1 damage, or
and I think this
their
is lethal
opponents
for
needed
Washington,
to put them
right?
at 12. Yes.
They have 9 plus 3. Yeah, this is definitely lethal.
7, 10, 12, 14,
so yeah, it's
17.
Super close game here between NAU and Washington, and yeah, a couple of decisions there could have certainly swung the game. So Washington ends up narrowly keeping themselves in the match as they pick up their first win.
Yeah, maybe this could be a reverse sweep for Washington. I mean, dude, 7597 is no slacker when it comes to the game of Hearthstone.
It's true.
But yeah, that was a very interesting couple of turns because NAU needed to, on 2 mana, draw 1 damage. They had 7 with the Mortal Strike and the Fiery War Axe, or they needed their opponent to put them 12 or below for the Mortal Strike to deal 6. So I'm wondering, is it more likely that your opponent has Acidic Swamp Ooze, or is it more likely that you draw Finley? I mean, that's just that's such a small chance that it's really very hard to. And I mean, we saw
their reaction there. I think one of them was like hitting the other with a pillow or something. Clearly they disagreed.
Yeah.
And then exactly that came up.
Oh, man,
it's definitely a tough spot.
It's so rare that you get punished for something that is just so hard to figure out. But we're gonna go ahead and check out some quick highlights from that game.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting spot. We see, Washington could have played their weapon.
I told you. Okay,
and that is exactly what we thought it was.
Yeah, not the happiest faces, but you know what? They're still up 2-1.
Yeah, they're in a good spot. So
the Pirate Warrior needs to get a win against the Rogue or the Reno Warlock. The Reno Warlock can be a bit tough if it has a fantastic draw.
Yep.
And the Rogue can honestly do crazy Edwin things very early on and just win off of that.
Neither of those is the sort of matchup where you just steamroll them.
Yeah.
Rogue, I think, is pretty heavily favored for the Warrior because the Rogue deck has no healing and has no taunts. And the Warrior can just go face. Whereas the Warlock matchup can be a little bit more even because they do have big minions that they can more consistently get out early, and they have ways to give those minions taunt, which can really mess you up. But we do see that Warlock coming out, so this is definitely Washington's better matchup, they feel, and I would tend to agree with them.
Yeah, absolutely. The Pirate Warrior actually probably... Would you say the worst matchup for the Rogue? Probably.
We actually saw, I think that looking at some metagame stats, we saw sort of a rise of Rogue pretty sharply.
And then the Pirate Warrior rose again.
And then Pirate Warrior got more popular, and Rogue kind of got depressed again. So you see the whole ecosystem of the
rock, paper, scissors metagame sort of figuring itself out.
It's the Kazakus patches,
Jade metagame, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, because Pirate Warrior was like the first deck to become big after Gadgetson. Then Shaman rose in response to that and sort of was able to out aggro, and Reno Warlock was there as well.
Well, that was really when Reno Mage became popular, was because it was like, oh, all these pirate decks. You know what I can do?
They feed on these pirate decks.
Kill your things and gain some life. But speaking of killing things and gaining life, that's gonna be the plan for Washington in this game. They have a little life gain, but not too much to kill things in their hand.
This is a good start for NAU.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is not bad at all. They have some pretty strong aggression here, and turn 2, not really when you want to draw Mistress Mixtures, but it's still not bad because even if they play it now, or if they choose to life tap and then play it after, it's still 4 life. So that does generally require at least some interaction from your opponent. It's a little scary playing it now if their opponents just coin out Frothing Berserker, and that thing gets killed. Well, you are kind of in a rough spot because you have no way to kill Frothing Berserker right now.
I mean, the most that Washington could do on the following turn would be Earthring Farseer. Until they find some form of board clear or a Shadow Bolt, it's almost safer for them to actually deal 2 damage to themselves and draw a card. And NAU going with Upgrade and the Bloodsail Raider. They could have coined the Upgrade last turn and actually squeezed in 1 more damage. But I think this is certainly working out fine for them anyway.
This does, by not coining the Upgrade, they don't leave themselves vulnerable, again, to an Acidic Swamp Ooze, which is definitely a card that's played in Reno Warlock. So, yeah, this is not the best of spots for Washington here. They could just Earth and Ring, but unfortunately for them, that trades with a charge of the weapon and 1 minion, and, as we see,
Frothing
can
Berserker.
just feed a Frothing Berserker.
You can even pull out the Naga Corsair on turn 4, which is... It's an interesting card. We've seen it included in the Warrior just a little bit here and there. Also, the South Sea Captain coming into the deck as well. So the deck, as short of a time as it has been on ladder, has evolved pretty significantly, actually.
Okay, there's a lot of variations that we've seen. The South Sea Captain, I think, is one of the sort of big innovations that came in that makes some of the versions much stronger against other minion-based decks, and also just generally, in some cases, just faster. They have a better sort of best possible draw, rather than having just a bunch of burn, like multiple Mortal Strikes. In some cases, we often see 1 Mortal Strike in the decks now, that you end up just having more minion presence, which is much stronger in the minion-based matchups in particular. Speaking of minions, there's some minions taking damage, and there's a Frothing Berserker getting real mad.
Man.
This is a game that could be over real soon, even before that fellow can have his say. Washington here, they have Reno now. They found him, but they're facing down, what is that, 9, 10, 12 damage next turn alone?
I mean, they can... Pretty much their only option this turn is to throw down the Brand and the Mistress of Mixtures and try to clear up some damage on the following turn before Reno on 6. But even if they do that, NAU is going to have such a dominant board presence at that point that I don't know that Reno can win the game for Washington.
Yeah, this is a situation where they really need some sort of removal. I wonder, if we may. Yep, we're going to see them play these things, Baran and Mistress, as you predicted. They do have Power Overwhelming, so if one of these does happen to live, they could at least Power Overwhelming it into that Frothing Berserker.
Yeah.
But I suspect that we may not see them live.
Yeah, I mean, if NAU gets very greedy, then Washington has the Defender of Argus and could maybe make something happen with that.
The big thing here is that attacking into the minions just powers up your Frothing more. And your opponent has shown they can't kill Frothing. If they had Shadow Bolt, if they had a Spellbreaker. They would have done something to that Frothing Berserker. So using your onboard presence to just kill these minions, you continue to pump your Frothing and just continue to pressure your opponent. And you even have Arcanite Reaper waiting to close things out too.
Man, Frothing Berserker has been terrorizing its enemies since like original Patron Warrior days.
I mean, before that, since like beta,
the
alpha,
beginning of the game.
Frothing Berserker's always been gross.
It's just been a good 3-drop.
Naga Corsair here. Are they going to leave up? They are going to leave up the Mistress of Mixture. So, all right, they decide that they want to just use these resources to push the face. So this can allow a power overwhelming on the Mistress of Mixtures to take out the Frothing.
But then NAU has 14 in the following turn.
They do, thanks to the Arcanite Reaper. There could be. I don't see it. I don't see it. They just have so much pressure here.
Yeah, okay, what could they tap into? If you tap and get Shadow Bolt, you're still dead. I think this is just...
I mean, the best play with their hand right now is just, PO, well, Twilight Drake first.
Yeah.
Order. PO and you go up to 12 life, but you see that your opponent has 9 on board. Even just a War Axe kills you.
Man, but at this point, if they were to be able to live one more turn to get down that Reno.
But this is the power of these pirate decks. They are so fast. You drew Reno Jackson, but Reno Jackson is too slow. Arcanite Reaper seals the deal, and Northern Arizona University takes down Washington.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I would say, a little bit of an upset. Washington with 3 very decorated players on their team, Dude 7597, as well as 2 other players with multiple legend finishes, a Tavern Hero win under their belt, and NAU taking that match rather convincingly, 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a strong performance by the Northern Arizona players. And like you said, I do think that has to be considered an upset, considering the strength of the team, particularly Dude 7597. He is played at a championship. Yeah, a very accomplished player. But hats off to Northern Arizona for getting the job done.
I believe actually Dude 7597's team in the very first Tespa Collegiate Series was, I want to say, top 8 in that first league. So he's no stranger to this tournament series as well. But it is only the first week. They still have plenty of time to get those wins under their belt. Let's check out some highlights from that match. The Shield Bearer pick in this matchup was really interesting, actually. Fortunately, didn't do enough for the Rogue to be able to win.
And there was that sneaky lethal with 8 to the face.
Sneaky lethal. I love hearing them talk after this. It's fun. I wish we'd get some of it during.
Yeah, that was.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah.
Mom, get the camera.
I just vaporized.
We just vaporized the play wreath face.
I told you, Nick. I told.
A little bit, a stumble in their victory, but they managed to pull together.
We see the celebration from Northern Arizona, blowing kisses to the camera. Definitely excited about their win there.
Absolutely, and fantastic play by both teams, obviously. I think Washington just had a bit of a rough start, their Rogue deck not getting the best draws it really needed in the favorable matchup against the Reno Warlock, giving the Reno Warlock the time that it really needed, and a 10-mana Kazakus potion on turn 4 that for 6 turns we had no idea what it did, but
definitely interested to hear what they have to say about that decision. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and to hear what they have to say about that, we actually have an interview with the winning team, Northern Arizona University. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah.
Congratulations. That must be really fantastic to win the first match of the tournament.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
We wanted to ask, one thing that really stood out to us, actually in the very first game, your choice to take a 10-mana Kazakus potion on turn 4. Can you walk us through that decision process?
I mean, it worked out.
We know that the rope was kind of burning when you got to that point, so what was going on there?
The rope was burning when it got to that point. Oh, God. It's kind of like a panic, like, 10-drop, it could be good, Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it ended up being pretty good.
Exact lethal.
I mean, we were speculating the entire time. Is it 6 damage to all? Is it an 8/8 demon? And it was 8 damage.
It was pretty perfect. Yeah.
Worked out pretty well. So, I mean, congratulations. This must be really exciting for you guys to represent Northern Arizona University. Do you have, are your friends excited for you? Are they backing you up? Or you guys are NAU athletes now.
Yeah, sports.
Are there any other teams from your college playing in this event?
I'm pretty sure there is, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple. There's not very many.
Just a couple, yeah.
Well, the first match of today was actually a University of Texas grudge match. The teams from the same school played against each other, so maybe that'll happen for you guys. You never know.
Maybe.
I just have to say, what was the best moment for you guys in that match that was clearly vaporizing a Flame Face?
4-7. But what do you think?
But I want to hear what you have to say, because that was my favorite moment.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my god! No, my favorite part might have been white shirt on the left. Your reaction when in the Warrior versus the Shaman when you drew the Finley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, we shouldn't hero power because we might be below 12. The Mortal Strike will be better, and I was like, and then it happened. I wanted it. I was like, no. That's right.
All right. Well, congratulations, guys. Really fantastic play. Best of luck in the rest of the tournament, and best of luck in the rest of your college career. Really great job.
Thank you.
All right, some fantastic stuff from the team over at Northern Arizona University. So far, interviewing these teams has been a blast. I mean, these guys seem like they are a ton of fun. Yeah, really interesting to always see how the mix of collegiate education and Hearthstone comes together. But it seems like these guys are doing really well. So a fantastic match. And let's go ahead and take a look at what our final match of the day will be. It will be CSU Fresno taking on Utah. And then going into tomorrow, we see those three matches as well. But just one left remaining today, finishing out the West region. We will be right back after this.